Most of us only do one thing with our partners, and it's watching TV. I promise you that relationship is not growing. It's actually falling apart slowly and you have no idea. The quality of your relationship will skyrocket immensely by doing any of those 3 out of the 4 than just switching on the telly. I was always someone who believed that distance was really good for relationships. I think it's healthy to miss each other. I think it's healthier if you have a plan of how you're going to be apart. And I think it's even healthier if you have a plan of how to reconnect after the time apart. And I think that's where relationships in distance go wrong. Most relationships in distance are either by default or with no consciousness. So we just ended up not seeing each other for X amount of time, whether that's 1 week, 1 month, or whatever it may be. That unconscious time of not being with each other is not healthy for a relationship. You don't know why you're disconnected. You don't know for how long. You don't know how you're reconnecting, and you don't know how you're staying in touch. That's not good quality time away. So that's how to make time work for you. 6 months is too long. 6 months doesn't work. I've tried and tested it. It's really bad.
Same.
It took 6 months after 6 months to reconnect. And I literally felt like it was like a rule that for every day I was apart, I had to spend a day of quality time with that person to refine and rediscover and to sustain and to evolve and grow a relationship. And I literally felt that 6 months apart took me 6 months with my wife to get back to where we were before those 6 months, especially because some of those 6 months happened unconsciously. And so unconscious time apart isn't healthy, and unconscious reconnection isn't healthy. And that was 6 months of conscious reconnection after 6 months of unconscious disconnectedness that helped us connect again. And I'd never want to do that again. It was too painful to look at someone and someone you love and someone you feel you've really achieved something with, to kind of feel like you had to rebuild it all again. It was too much. And I don't want to do that again. And so I'm changing the way I feel about distance. I'm always going to make it conscious. It's always communicated. And some of the habits I've set up that have been really helpful is I also set up not even just disconnection physically, but time poverty and emotional. So I'm going on tour this year. And when I go on tour this year, I'm going to be on the road in the US for 3 weeks in total, which is quite normal for me and my wife to be apart for 3 weeks. But it's communicated, it's in the calendar. And then I come back to LA for a month and I've kept that whole schedule free because I want to plan a few trips with my wife. We may even go on a vacation, whatever it may be. And then after that, I go on my world tour, which is another 4 weeks or 5 weeks of cities all across Europe, India, Asia, and Australia. And my wife will pop into a couple of cities, but she's not going to come on the whole tour with me. And so again, I'm like, okay, which cities are you going to be in? Which weekends am I going to take off? Which nights am I going to be with you? And then what are we going to do when I reconnect after the world tour? It's now coming from a completely conscious, organized space, just as I would organize work, just as I would deal with a business partner. You just can't take a relationship for granted. It just will break. It will wilt away. It's like, come up with your own relationship rules. Like one of ours is every 30 days, we spend 3 days together without our phones. And we drive somewhere 3 hours away from our home in LA and spend that time together. And that's been a healthy habit for us every month, because I don't think I want to wait for our annual vacation to spend quality time together. And so whether you're spending 1 hour together every week, undisturbed, without your phones. I also think that one of the things I talk about is the levels of connection. So I had a friend who just got back from vacation with her partner, and straight after that, she was like, but I didn't feel like we spent any time together. And when she told him that, he said, well, we just spent 3 days together. What do you mean? And when I asked her, well, if you spent 3 days together, what do you mean? She said, well, he was on his iPad, or he was on his phone, or he was on his laptop. We weren't actually together. And I said, well, you're not asking for time. You're asking for presence, and you're asking for energy. So often our vocabulary is wrong. You know, we're saying, oh, I want you to come home from work on time. That's not what you're saying. What you're saying is, I want to spend time where we share energy and interact together, but we're using the wrong language. And so, we're not communicating what we want. But more interestingly, I found that, and everyone can do this, and I really want people to take this in and really let it sit. Most of us only do one thing with our partners, and it's watching TV. And that is the lowest form of intimacy that you could possibly ask for with any human being. If you and I watch TV together for 200 hours a year, we would potentially be no closer than we were before. Yet with our partners, all we do is stay glued to a box for hours every day, waste minutes searching for what to watch, and then maybe having a quick little chat about it and switching it off. So I have this pyramid of intimacy, and entertainment's on the lowest rung of the ladder. But that's what the majority of couples are doing. So if we're only watching TV together, I promise you that relationship is not growing. It's actually falling apart slowly and you have no idea. And I know that's a painful truth to accept, but it is an inconvenient truth.
So what's the opposite of watching TV?
So higher than that, and that's why it's a ladder, there's other steps. Instead of entertainment, I'm really interested in people doing experiences together, something new, something fresh, an experiment together. What I mean by that is, how can you both do something that you both are not experts at? Often what we do in relationships is we say, oh, well, I love football, come watch football with me. Or I love this, come watch this with me. I love this band, come and experience this band with me. What we're doing is we're creating an expert and student mentality. I'm going to teach you what the offside rule is. I'm going to teach you about this music and this whatever else it may be, right? We're kind of creating that idea that I know something you don't. And what that does in a relationship is it doesn't create a shared experience. A shared experience is when we both go somewhere where we both don't have a lot of experience, and now we get to discover new things about our partner. Now we get to see them in a new scenario. Now we get to make ourselves both feel vulnerable. TV is not vulnerable. So when we're talking about creating vulnerability, it's not just in conversation, it's in us both doing an escape room that we've never done before. Now we're vulnerable without even trying, right? We're both going to go and be part of an experiment experience that we've never done before because it helps us be vulnerable. Maybe we're going to try a new sport that we never played together. Me and my wife tried surfing last year, never done it before. This year we tried wakeboarding, never done it before. We both look like fools, both can't do it to save our lives. Actually, she's much better than me, so I'll give her the credit. But the point is that the more you put yourself in uncomfortable new experiences and experiments, and by the way, I've given a range of examples. It could literally be, going to an art class together or going to pottery together or whatever it may be. It can be the most basic thing. Do something when neither of you know anything about it. Your vulnerability skyrockets without having to have a heart-to-heart conversation. Higher than that level is education. Go and learn together. Maybe there is a book that you can both read together. Maybe there is a podcast you can listen together. Maybe there is a retreat that you both want to go on. Maybe there is a course that you both really want to do. Or alternatively, you both commit to doing separate things, but you report back and talk about it. One of you is learning an art, one of you is learning self-development. Now you're sharing your exclusive learning journeys with each other. You're both growing together. And then the highest thing is serving together. Go to a soup kitchen, go to a homeless shelter, go somewhere that inspires you both, that affects you both, and go and help, go and serve, go and improve the world together. When you think about any of those 3 out of the 4, yes, they take a bit more planning. Yes, they take a bit more time than watching TV. Actually, maybe not. I'd argue that takes the same amount of time. The quality of your relationship will skyrocket immensely by doing any of those 3 out of the 4 than just switching on the telly.